The foreign types of literature introduced after the Norman conquest first found favor with the monarchs and courtiers, which were deliberately fostered, the courtiers deliberately fostered by them to the disregard of native forms. They liked their own creations, or the creations by their own people. No effective protest was possible by the Anglo-Saxon, and English throughout the centuries to come was largely fashioned in the manner of the French. So there was French influence in the literature, in the writing of the literature and in the reading of the literature, in the taste, intellectual taste. Throughout the whole period, which we call the Middle English period, as belonging to the Middle Ages and medieval times in the history of Britain, or the Anglo-Norman period, in forms of artistic expressions as well as of religious service, the English openly acknowledged a Latin control. There was Latin influence also during this age. Most of the phrases were taken from Latin texts and Latin literature. It is true that before the Norman conquest in 1066, the Anglo-Saxons had a body of native literature distinctly superior to any European vernacular. But one cannot deny that the Normans came to their land, to England, when they greatly needed an external stimulation. It became, the English literature before Norman conquest was rapidly becoming stagnant. So this Norman conquest provided an external stimulus. The conquest affected a wholesome awakening of national life. The people were suddenly inspired by a new vision of a greater future. They became united in a common hope. In course of time, the Anglo-Saxons lost their initial hostility to the newcomers, and all became part and parcel of one nation. The Normans not only brought with them soldiers and artisans and traders, they also imported scholars to revive knowledge, to revive they invited chroniclers also to record memorable events. They invited minstrels from France, from Norman, to celebrate victories, to sing of adventures and love. The great difference between the two periods, Anglo-Saxon period and Anglo-Norman period, is marked by the disappearance of Old English poetry. Old English poetry gradually disappeared. Even the Anglo-Saxon writers or the original English writers did not notice this thing. There is nothing during the Anglo-Norman period like Beowulf or Fall of the Angels. The later religious poetry has little in it to recall the finished art of Cynewulf. So earlier, the British people, the English people, wrote Beowulf, Cynewulf, which were very, energetic works. Anglo-Saxon poetry, whether derived from heathendom or from the church, has ideas and manners of its own. It comes to perfection and then it dies away. It seems that Anglo-Saxon means before the Norman conquest. So Anglo-Saxon poetry grows to rich maturity and then disappears as with the new forms of language and under new influence, the poetical education started again. And so the poetry of Anglo-Norman period, new age, where we see French influence, the poetry of Anglo-Norman period has nothing in common with Anglo-Saxon poetry. These are two different periods, Anglo-Saxon period, Anglo-Norman period in English literature. So Anglo-Saxon poetry is energetic, full of force. Anglo-Norman poetry has different characteristics. The most obvious change in literary expression appears in the vehicle employed. For centuries, Latin had been more or less spoken or written by the clergy in England. The conquest, the Norman conquest, which happened in the year 1066, which led to the reinvigoration of the monasteries and the tightening of the ties with Rome, determined its more extensive use of the Latin phrases, of the Latin language itself. Still more important, as a result of foreign sentiment in court and castle, the Norman conquest caused writing in the English vernacular to be disregarded. They did not respect the language, the literature written in vernacular languages. They introduced Latin terminologies and Latin words in the language, and they established French also as the natural speech of cultivated and the high-born. The clergy insisted on the use of the Latin, the nobility on the use of French. No one of influence saw the utility of English as a means of perpetuating thought. And for nearly 3 centuries, nearly 300 years, very few works appeared in the native tongue. In spite of the English language having been thrown into the background, some works were composed in it, though they echoed the sentiments and the tastes of the French writers. As French then was the supreme arbiter of European literary style. Now in the next video, I will talk about different forms which were popular during the medieval English period, like the romances, and many other styles were popular during the Middle English period. So wait for the next video so that we can talk about other aspects of Middle English period, and I will also compare the writings during the Middle English period and then Anglo-Saxon and Anglo-Norman the periods are included in the Middle English period. So we see that in poetry we have Anglo-Saxon period, Anglo-Saxon poetry, which was full of force, which was full of vigor, which was full of energy, and then Normans conquered England in the year 1066, and they brought with them new influence, new styles, new tastes, and they perpetuated, they propagated the new styles, like they introduced more English words, more French words, more delicacy into the literature, and they disregarded the literature which was being written by Anglo-Saxons, and they cultivated an idea. Even the people living in England, they developed a taste for delicacy. They developed a taste for French influence. And during Middle Ages, we have other things also, like the romances, the drama, how it developed. It developed and went on developing till even modern age. We see different styles of drama. So the beginning can be found in the Middle Ages. There were pageants, and there were short, very short interludes like things, and I will discuss all these things in the later videos. But for now, think about what I have talked about in this video. Think about what I have discussed with you, the Anglo-Saxon period and the Anglo-Norman influence during the Middle Ages, and write something about these things, like the Anglo-Saxon period, the difference between these two influences, Anglo-Saxon and Anglo-Norman, during the Middle English period. And I will give you some assignments also, where I will ask about different aspects of these influences and how you perceive these things, and what are your views about these two influences, or about these two styles, Anglo-Saxon and Anglo-Norman styles and differences. So this is only a kind of initiation for you. Once you watch this video, try to read about these things in some books, and through internet and other resources, and develop your own idea about the medieval English literature, Middle Ages, the literature written during the medieval period, and how it is different from the literature written during the later periods, during Renaissance, Elizabethan age, or Jacobean period, Caroline period, Puritan age, Commonwealth period, which came later, and then Victorian and Romantic. So once you develop interest about the evolution of English language and evolution of English literature, you will very much like to read more and more about different influences, different movements which came later in the history of English literature. But I would suggest you to write down your ideas, to write down your views, your thinking, and analyze these things. Read different plays, different books, different stories, different novels, different poems by different writers, and then analyze them from different perspectives, which I will like to discuss with you in the coming videos. What are perspectives, what are literary theories, so that you can enjoy reading literature, so that you can relish the idea of reading works by different writers. But once you develop the first thing is that you need to develop taste for literature. Until then, do these kind of activities, read and write about different writers, about their different works, and then you will enjoy my videos also. So be prepared for that. In the next video, I will talk about different genres in the medieval English period. like the romances, like the drama, liturgy, etc. So thank you very much for watching this video.